we're all here, because David is not coming. So I can call us to order at 5:31. Let's find the agenda. Okay, first up, I have nothing to add. So approval of minutes. We have November 18th, November 25th, and December 9th. Has everybody had a chance to look them over? Any questions, corrections, changes? And if not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have a second? All right. So final chance for any changes? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes of November 18th, November 25th, and December 9th, say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. Communications. I have none of those either. All right.
It's only been a day.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome to central office. Thank you for being here to back us up. So committee reports. Okay, Superintendent Search Exploratory Committee. So we had our first meeting recently, last Wednesday, maybe? The 5th, December 5th. Oh, thank you. And our next meeting is tomorrow at 7 o'clock at Green Street School. So the committee is moving. Anyone have anything else to add on that? Okay. Warrants and payrolls. So we are looking to approve, put my best Christina auctioneer voice on, 1063, 1064, 1066, 1068, and 1069 in the amount of $117,618.69. 1070, 1071, 1074, 1075, 1076, 1077 in the amount of $434,419.82, as well as November 8th payroll of $449,424.61, and November 22nd payroll in the amount of $484,849 even. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Are there any questions? Anything? All right. All those in favor of approving the warrants and payroll as moved, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the warrants are passed. All right. Do we have any administrative reports, or are we just going straight into budget?
I think that's the main event.
Oh, you've got one?
A couple of communications.
Oh, okay.
Go, but they need to be resignation or return.
All right, so what is my process here? I read, or
I can summarize.
summarize?
Sure.
Would you like to summarize?
One position, resignation effective immediately, Special Education Academy School.
Okay.
And one, a retirement effective at the end of the year.
Okay. And I take it we need to accept them. All right, so I move that we accept the, what are we calling this? Resignation and retirement as detailed in their letters. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of accepting? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay.
Can I get the names on those?
Yes, would you?
I will note that one is the resignation is a very recent hire. The other is a long-term staff member working with the ELL program, English for Speakers of Other Language, ESOL program, and will be sorely missed.
Okay. I guess we can say accept with regret.
Accept with regret?
With regret.
That's a friendly amendment.
Friendly
for your own
amendment.
motion. Okay. Very friendly amendment.
All right, so now I think we're on to the main event of the budget.
Okay, I have documents here to share. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, go this way.
Go
Whoa,
that way.
it got heavier.
Yeah. You
We're all
have
set, yeah.
copies, Paul and Deb, do you have?
We get an electronically, we don't need to.
Yeah,
I only need one of
you just need one? Okay. We do have an extra if you need. An extra.
Mary might want one.
Mary, you want
Yeah,
to
send it around.
bookmark? Oh.
And just so we don't forget, I'll pass these around. You know, we can do
Oh,
them
that's right,
later.
we need to sign?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so fortunately, you have seen all the components of this proposed budget, and just as recently as Monday evening was the largest segment of our proposed budget. So I probably can be fairly brief in my overview, but we're happy to try to address any questions you might have. So the first page is the summary document, just a spreadsheet with page numbers that help you find the 4 programs, administrative and supportive instruction, that includes services, transportation. Second group is our special education services, and then our grant-funded programs, and the food service programs. So you see in the total for total expenditures down toward the bottom of the document, $22,783,474 would be the proposed budget and the motion, assuming we get that far. When we look at the expenditures, again, you know, we've gone over each component, and you now can note, based on the assumptions that we discussed at the board meeting, administrative and supportive instruction up 1.8%. That's the $3,942,000. Special ed is the largest component of this budget proposal, and as we discussed Monday evening, largely driven by our outside placements, but a very significant increase to $14,322,000, a 20% change. Then we have our grant-funded programs, keeping in mind that these programs have a revenue source that offsets the expenditures, so it's not part of an assessment. Those programs, we'd like to see an increase there, 5.9%. And then our food services, similar to the grant program, they are primarily self-funded through the Child Nutrition Program reimbursements. And the main reason why we see an increase there is associated, just a reminder, the Putney program is now part of the SU general ledger, where the Putney School used to have a separate Fund 5. So that still operates as it did in the school. It's just the state is saying, we're sending you the revenue and we expect you to report the expenditures out of the supervisory union, as we do with all the other schools. So there's our overview. Just a couple other comments. The first page, as you flip the page over, there's the methodology that we talked about. November 25th, the board reviewed the cost allocation methodology, so I included that. The page 2 is another spreadsheet that I just added today, but it may be familiar to you. It's the same information and the format that we've included in prior year budgets. It basically takes the enrollment statistics for the K-12 programs, identifies proportional statistics there. You know, for example, in this data set up top, the Vernon is 7.1%. The SD, the Windham Southeast School District, is the balance of that, and those are the statistics that are used to allocate costs for the admin and the supportive instruction. The next section of data on page 2 is what we've reviewed in the prior meetings, but it's pulling the data that's in various places in your financial statements and putting it into one place so that it's easy to refer to. It also helps us assure that we get the data into the Windham Southeast School District, and that we bill the other entities that where we have reimbursements coming back primarily from special ed spending. So you have allocation for admin and supportive instruction, allocation for special education, the essential early ed, and then the total of all of those assessments. Page 3 is the same document that we discussed on Monday evening in quite a lot of detail, so I won't say much about that. Along with page 4, more of the special ed allocation methodology for distributing those costs between Vernon, the Windham Southeast School District, and the tuition towns. So then, starting on page 6 is the detailed budget, as we have discussed, and maybe a very quick summary of that, just kind of using the first page as your point of reference. You see we've got the admin and supportive instruction through page 6 on the detail for the revenues, okay? And then special ed is on page 17. I'm just looking at the first page. And so on. Grants are all the way back on page 55 through 57, and then the food service starts on page 69 on the revenue sections, and then you can see the same references for expenditures. So as you want to refer to different programs, hopefully that helps navigate the report.
It might and it might not. You don't have the center one anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry. We did. Yeah. If you orientate this in this way, it is in the. It's right down here.
Oh, it's down there.
Yeah.
Okay, we
it's
can do
down
that.
here. So, thanks.
It's down there.
Yeah, it's down.
Oh.
Yeah. I was
Okay.
having a, so yeah, if you look at the bottom, I know, I was thinking we're gonna have to do math.
No. This is, as you may know, putting various different applications together and then
As
running
long
it
as
through.
it's there, that's perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
And I know David had sent you, or sent me questions that I had sent to you.
Oh, okay. We just
That's okay, I
wrap this
can.
up, but I'm happy to address those.
So he had questions on, and I marked them just to make this easier. Okay, the old page 21.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if it's still the new page 21.
No, it won't be.
It won't be?
Just because we had you have a number of other programs now.
Okay, so it was a health insurance, special ed, big bump.
Yeah, okay.
He was questioning what was up
Yeah.
there.
Let's start with that.
You want to start with that one?
Yeah, and it'll be easy for me to just look at. Oh, okay, so that's the old one, and now let's see what we
Oh,
have.
yeah, I mean, it could have changed, and then I can
let's
tell
see.
him.
Um,
You're gonna
so-
find it a lot faster
Yeah,
than I am.
special education in Dummerston. We will look that up.
I have the old page 21.
Yep.
And I see, is he referring to an FY '21, there's a charge of $32,661?
Yes.
Yep.
You have the answer?
Well, do I have the answer? I don't know. I mean, this would be, I don't know if I can get in the budget module here, Frank, if we can connect.
You should be able to, and if not, I can as well.
Yeah, I imagine, I mean, that would be health insurance costs for 4 employees, because there are 2, it's actually 1.5 FTEs on, in the teacher line, and then in the second line, paraeducators, that's 2 FTEs, so it's, I would imagine it would be health insurance for those 4 staff.
Okay.
And as to why that was 0, I mean, I imagine the question is, why was it 0 last year and 32,000 this year? We may have, that just could be, it was in the wrong line and we corrected it.
Mm-hmm.
So that might take a little bit of research.
Yeah.
Okay.
do you follow?
So it's for
These staff.
these staff,
Yes.
both the teachers and the paras?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay. I mean, I can let him know the answer, and if he
Mhm.
wants to,
Yep, any follow-up, we're
Yeah.
happy to describe the plans that have been signed up for.
okay. So that was that one. Then he had on old page 23,
Mm-hmm.
also under health insurance. So this is 1128, what's
Okay.
1128?
Yep.
Or who's 1128, I guess is the question.
Are we in special ed still?
We
Yep.
are,
There you go, 1128.
so this was an increase of $28,920 in health insurance.
All right. So let me see.
Guilford, okay.
Yeah.
And it could be the exact same
Yeah,
answer.
here we go. Let me follow along here, 49
I think it may
to
have been a change
77.
in plan when you go to
Okay, so, yeah, so,
second
um,
number. Go to 1128.
yeah, for our teachers in Guilford and the paraeducators.
Right.
What we've looked at is what plans they are currently on, is what we've done on all health insurance assumptions.
Okay,
And so we've taken their current plan and we have applied what that board had approved for assumptions for fiscal year '21. And that, with a family plan of
I got the answer.
an employee of 15,000, it can vary quite a bit.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and Frank is right. No, when we look into the specifics of what makes up that $77,000, that's 3 employees with family plans, which in and of itself is
Okay.
20, 40, 62-ish thousand dollars, and then another employee who looks like they might be on a 2-person.
Mhm.
okay,
So it is a matter of plan choice
okay.
from year to year.
And then his final one was on the old page 33,
Mhm.
4048. Ooh, that's the SU.
Yes, it is.
That's it, I knew that, yes, I figured that out. So this was a huge reduction.
Oh, yes, yes. So
Um,
that one, I believe, the new version may have changed, but let's
Okay.
see. So psychologists, Marisa and Shelley, 4048, psychologist, and on the new document, it's, let's see, psychologist is on page.
48, if I'm right, I
Yeah,
think 48.
What's the big number? What's the old? 30?
Yeah.
The old page number was 33, I think the new page number is 48.
48,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, here we go. Psychologists, I know we've
oh,
made it.
yes, it did go up,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So there was a plan.
So there was a,
There was a plan to hire psychologists, an additional position, right? We added a position,
okay,
and that was,
so this has been reversed,
Yeah.
so when we get him a new one. Is this new one, this will be online,
it
so I
will
can
be
tell him?
online after this evening.
Okay. All right, those were David's questions. What does everybody else have?
I had a question about expenditures for the board.
Mhm.
We only have $550 in for
Yeah.
supplies, and BCTV is probably working out to be more than that, and I wondered if we should budget for some of the things that we're.
I think that's been going into the professional service component of the superintendent's budget.
Where is that?
Let's go back to the admin group, and that's on the early section. And then we go to the 2310. So we'll get there. Yep, there we are on page 9 on the one that goes 9 of 78 is
Okay.
the superintendent office. And then the 300 series is the professional services. That's on, actually it's the first line on the next page, 321.
So that is where we do BCTV from?
Generally, that's where the BCTV, it's a service that we procure.
How are you feeling? Do we have any concept of how much? How?
Well, it's gone up, so.
Yeah, isn't it about $100 per,
I think it's 150.
is it now? Yeah,
Went
that's
up
right, after the
because they lost the
FCC
funding, yeah.
change, yeah.
So-
But we don't have that many SU meetings after the budget cycle.
Right.
So if we had another 5, I think we're sufficient there. That, that line item, it's hard to predict. It's, sometimes it's the legal services
Right.
and other consulting services. So I think it's been adequate.
Okay.
So what's the difference between professional educational services and other professional services?
Yes, so educational meaning typically there's some kind of a connection to program and communication about education. The other professional, just like the next line down is audit, it's really not oriented toward education. It's more of a service that's not directly related to instruction, like an audit. It's still a professional service, but
It's not legal, or could it be legal?
legal is the 341. That's the larger number.
Okay, so legal comes in under other.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And we can do a little editing on the descriptor, so I'll make a note of that. We can't substantially change. We cannot change the numbers, the count numbers, but we can help. Like they have, these are all state descriptors,
Mandated.
and but we can edit and add certain things. So maybe legal and other.
Now, why has advertising gone away? Is that now under communications or something?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so,
It is, and you can see if you put the actuals together,
oh, yeah.
it's a little closer.
Okay. All right. Other questions, or does everyone need a few moments to go to their favorite areas and look and try to see? Yeah. Well, so I can start with mine, which is, I am still not understanding the Vernon Special Ed. And let me phrase that in the form of, when we got the FTE ratios and projections, it looks to me like the number of students is stable. So I won't say numbers just in case I shouldn't, but it looks very stable there. And as far as the number of teachers, that hasn't changed at all either. So if our number of kids is the same and the number of teachers is the same, I question how our special ed budget can double
For Vernon.
for Vernon.
Yeah. And it is, it's the difference in being a K-12 system that just shares proportionally regardless of how much is spent at one school versus another. So even though the budget is organized, the supervisory union budget is organized by school site, so that Our administrators, can be not only accountable, but communicate the resources at each site based on each site's needs, student needs. We present information at a site level, but if you looked at the actual cost at Vernon in the past versus how much Vernon is paid, there's not much of a correlation there because it had been a proportional allocation. Ultimately, it didn't matter how much Vernon spent or did not spend on special education. It wouldn't change the outcome of the former methodology, which was K-12, what's Vernon's percentage, and what's Dummerston's percentage, what's Guilford's percentage, and everybody is essentially sharing everyone else's costs. That was the old model before Vernon voted to become the tuition town. So when we went to the tuition town, it's all in that third page, which is a very different methodology. On page 3 and 4,
Yeah.
it's a very different methodology of saying, well, what is the Vernon's share? So it's this document is here, page 4.
I get that the methodology has changed. I guess I'm just now looking at it going, how can it be fair if we have the same number of teachers and the same number of kids, but our costs have doubled?
That's the...
I just keep going back
that's
to...
a good question. And the answer is tuition towns are different than member towns. So that's the answer.
Okay.
Okay, in that just like Marlboro and Dover and Vernon, we look at the costs associated with that particular group of students and they're billed directly. That is not the way it was before Vernon voted to be a tuition town. So on the elementary level, because Vernon is a member of the supervisory union, and the state sends the supervisory union the state aid for Vernon, that we've made no distinguishments. We're still in the old system.
Yeah.
But at the secondary level, Vernon is chosen to be like Marlboro and Dover in that they have choice. So whether you send a Vernon student to Pioneer Valley or to Brattleboro Union or to any other school, it's going to be the same direct bill methodology as opposed to the shared cost.
Now, we don't have any out-of-district placements at the secondary level, is that correct?
That's right.
So if the cost driver for special ed going through the roof is out-of-district placements, and Vernon doesn't have any, I still go back to how are our special ed numbers doubling?
Yeah, so...
I'm having a real hard time wrapping my head around it's because of a methodology. I guess now I'm going, I don't like this methodology.
Yeah.
Which maybe it is too late to say that, but it takes a while to understand this and just say...
It does. Yeah. It is something that we talked about when Vernon was considering withdrawing from the union. We knew this was likely, but we couldn't predict it because we can't predict that page 4. We won't know what that number is going to be next year. And unfortunately, when you are dealing with a small sample size in terms of statistics, a small change is going to make a big difference.
A big difference.
But even then, your logic is sound in that you're saying even when you look at page 4, you see relative stability, or in fact you see a decline.
Yeah.
And that goes back to, again, us discussing the administration, Shelley and Marisa, going into services provided based on the service page on each Vernon student's IEP, and correlating those services with the cost of those services, which is the staff, the salary benefits. So when they did that analysis to basically test these pro rata allocations, that's where they confirm that Vernon's actually consuming more than what is being assessed. But the state is comfortable with us using a proportional allocation model as opposed to this cost accounting approach. So that's the most convincing data, which we could probably take student names away and show you the IEP requirements for minutes of service, show you the cost of the staff that provided those at BUHS. You'll see the total, it's closer to 600,000 than it is to 534 that you see on page 4. And so that's the real, for me, I had the same concern. I knew you would have the same concern. Everybody in Vernon's gonna have the same concern. So we looked at all of the different ways to, of course, explain this, because we knew you would need an explanation. And that was the most convincing thing to me, that when you looked at the period of time that students are being served at BUHS, and you looked at the IEP requirements and you added up those costs, in my mind, they needed to be at least 534,000, and they were more.
So my final comment, then I'll get off my soapbox, for now at least, is when I look at the revenue coming in, it was just interesting to me that, well, we're bringing in this 62,000. Actually, maybe I'm trying to think how I did this. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're bringing in 294,000 in state aid. Vernon is, but our cost is
534.
is almost 600,000. So our state aid is covering 50% of our cost, whereas on the SD side, state aid is only covering 40% of the cost, which doesn't quite seem fair to me that.
And that has to do with the type of costs. So up here in the
Because they have the
extraordinary
03 grant and we don't,
And
okay.
as you pointed out correctly, there you don't have the extraordinary cost outside placement. And so that
makes it worse to me now, because
Well,
we don't have the extraordinary cost, and yet
But remember, extraordinary cost is only a reambrsement, meaning you're
over a certain,
you're spending more than
Yeah.
the revenue.
Yeah.
So the fact that you don't have the revenue means you're not spending more, on the cost side. But, these are all good questions. And
All right, that's my soapbox.
So, I was wondering if it's also partially that you pay a lower rate when you tuition in, because then the SU has to cover it. So part of that was sort of hidden, part of those costs, not hidden, but because we're rolled into.
Can't be,
We're
Yeah.
included in the
Yeah.
tuition, and because you can't put special ed costs or transportation costs into the
That's right.
tuition
That's
number.
right.
So it's.
so I'm not gonna have a true answer to this until this boils down to a Vernon budget. And if you come in next Monday with a Vernon budget that's $300,000 less,
You'll be happy.
I will be happy, and I will say, okay, we've got a balance here.
Yeah,
But I don't think you're gonna do that.
Unfortunately, the only reason why that would happen is if, 10 kids, IEPs said, we have addressed those learning disabilities and we no longer need, then this statistic would go down. You'd go from 16 down to 7 like it used to be,
Okay,
and you'd be back into that old mechanism. But that's and unfortunately maybe our experts can speak to it a little more, maybe not. But what I'm hearing is the need is growing in Vernon. It's not going the other way. So unfortunately, it means that this is a pattern that may continue. Not that it's going to double every year, but it doesn't sound like it's going the other way.
other questions?
The other question I could have would be, all the things that you just enumerated, it's all statute driven, is that correct?
Yeah, tuition, the way tuition towns are billed, the way the state audits how the billing is done. It's prescriptive in that if we made a mistake and we billed Vernon more than the costs that they incurred, the state requires a refund. So yes, all of those things are part of a practice that they collect the data through the annual statistical report. They then reconcile it against your budget versus your actual, and they say you either typically host districts try to avoid billing too much because it's really problematic when you have to cut a check in a future budget for a prior year. But yes, that's true. Title 16, and it's the whole 820 series of statutes. We did talk about using the statistics that are relevant for this budget, FY20, until the AOE gives us the updated November 2019 census. So, I just want to remind you of that. Typically, the Supervisory Union Board and any board, school board, they warn an amount to spend. So the motion is to approve a spending budget. It's not approving a revenue budget. Okay, so when we get those statistics, I wouldn't expect them to change substantially, but it's likely to have some change. So we would revise the assessment data associated with that. With the secondary special ed, we're using actual enrollment, so that won't change, right? And you don't have any.
It will go up. It's likely to go up in some instances, but.
Right, but as far as, we're using a data point that was captured December 4th.
Right, exactly,
And
yes.
there's
yes.
no reason to believe that wasn't accurate, right?
No,
Okay.
yes, I thought you meant like in the future.
Oh, in the future, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know every year that.
Right, no, that
it
is
fluctuates.
real-time data that was just pulled a few days ago.
Any other questions?
One of my questions about the Putney food program and trying to figure out the net. I tried to do this beforehand, but ran out of time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's.
We talked about that a long time ago.
Yep.
We just
Let's go to the food. It's very much at the back, and they're 1, 2, 3, 4, so they're page 76 on the expense side. And it looks different than the other districts from the historical point of view because they didn't operate through the SU and a contracted food service like the rest of the districts did. So you don't see actuals in the FY 19 or 20, with the exception of the pass-through subgrants. So that's when the state just was saying, we'll pass through the child nutrition and the fresh fruits and vegetable grants. And Putney employed and had a separate food service fund, so the SU, that's what you're looking at on page 76, is in the FY20 period, it was just cutting a check for the reimbursement that was passed through the SU. We go to the 168,000 proposed, and now you see payroll, actually it starts on the page above, so page 75, you see payroll of 80,000, and then we have some health insurance, and then there's the cost of food down the line there, 44,000. So that's the alternative to paying a food service manager who does all of that for you. They pay the staff, they buy the food, and you just have one line that says food. So there's the cost. In that 168, if you did go back to the Putney Town Report, you would see that that's about where they've been. They started out remember how many years, Ann, it's been, what, 4?
Or,
4 years, yeah. So they started out and they were only about a $60,000, $70,000 program, and then more participation and an attempt to provide catering services to some of the other entities in the area has brought them up to about 170, 175, I think, in the prior year. So that's the expense side, salary and benefits, and purchasing food, some equipment. The revenue side, we go back a few pages, and we do need to look at what formerly all districts, their general fund cut a check to subsidize the program. So with Putney, again, going back to the 1, 2, 3, 4 on the revenues, we get back to page, let's see.
72?
Is it 72?
71.
Was it the 177, 750?
Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Yeah, page 72. And their subsidy was calculated at $57,000. And when I say there, that means the SD now. All of the sites, they're now school sites as opposed to school districts, had a subsidy budget. And as you might recall, that's quite a bit more than, let's say, the Dummerston, 20,000.
Right.
But the volume's higher too. The Dummerston volume, just as we try to get a sense of comparability, Dummerston is on, I think, an earlier page.
71.
Yeah, there it is. And I'm just looking at the revenues for Dummerston, 109,000. So it's it's 50%. Well, not quite 50%, but it's it's a fairly good percentage smaller than the Putney program. But I know there's been some discussion, at other sites that, hey, let's look at the Putney program and see if it can be replicated, and those are all good options to consider.
Sean?
Well, I was just sort of looking at those numbers and I'm thinking to myself, where does the equity fall in? And I think what you just explained, if there's a revenue stream that doesn't show on the same line of expenses, that balances it. And so actually it is a picture of equity, but it doesn't appear to be at first glance.
Yeah, you have to go back to the revenue section of the financial statement. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Go.
I would say that if you're looking at Dummerston that is, 20% smaller, and that's generous than Putney, the support that the full tax base is giving is $19,000 versus to Putney, the support that the tax base is giving is $57,000. So there's multiple ways to look at equity, and their program is well supported with better participation, and we should all be moving towards better participation that maybe would cost us more. But when I'm looking at the bottom line, that's a significant dollar difference. I mean,
Yeah,
that
good point. Yeah.
I'm.
And part of that analysis is the federal reimbursement is based on poverty, and to what extent have parents elected to participate and qualify for reimbursement. So that is nothing to do with school quality or generally accessibility, but it has a lot to do with what appears financially comparable or not. So that's a very important factor. But most of the students in the Windham Southeast School District now are accustomed to the essentially the free lunch program, the community eligibility program for all of the Brattleboro town schools, and the Provision 2 community eligibility program for all of the high school, which includes middle school. So. But you may have noticed, and I think I mentioned it, I know Sean was aware of it, because we reviewed with the Agency of Ed what was the impact going to be on the high school moving to a Provision 2, where your students that don't qualify, or the parents that don't participate in becoming eligible. Provision 2 says you're only going to get about 30 cents for every meal served when you go to that model, which means you're giving up as much as $3 of what they were paying. So obviously that's a cost, and the high school contribution has gone up, as we thought it might, to about 20-25% of costs. So cost is about $500,000, and the contribution is a couple $100,000.
So where do we see that? Is that page 75?
Page 70.
Under the revenues, yeah.
Under revenues?
Yeah. So that's a reason
Okay.
why all entities don't go to Provision 2 overnight. Because, I mean, maybe we'll get there, but we just have to be aware that it will require a much larger local contribution to the program.
You know, I remember when that came up in District 6, and it had to do with the fact that the enrollment in the program drops, you know, in the free and reduced lunch program.
Yeah.
Drops when you get to high school because there's not the, as you mentioned, the participation by the
Yeah,
care providers
right.
of the children.
Yeah, so it's really frustrating, you know, for the folks that are trying to make a quality food accessible, because it really increases the cost. And when we know that the Brattleboro town schools are, what are they, about 650 kids? And the high school is,
788, I think.
yeah, and so if...
That does include the middle school.
Right, and the high school is, 1,200 kids. We know that the poverty level is there, but we're only getting qualified at 35%. And that, we can't, make, families participate, of course, we wouldn't do that. But the result is that, as you just said, we lose reimbursement. And that shifts costs to the local tax.
Other questions, anybody, as we keep flipping through?
As an aside on that general topic, I've heard that administrators, teachers are pleased with what they see, the effects at the high school with more kids eating good food, and the quality is it's never perfect, but they're doing a good job. Cafe Services is doing a very good job responding to the higher volume, higher participation, and the request for the nutritional programs.
Do we review that, or is that, no, that would be an SD, or would that be an SU?
That'd be an SD.
Review it.
The contract when it comes up
Every
year?
year, it's with the SU.
It would be the SU?
Yeah, that's
And
part
when
of
does
the
that
state law.
happen?
Typically, it's in February.
Okay, so
And
maybe
we-
something to put on a calendar?
Yeah, we did a we did the 5-year bid.
Yeah.
Just was it,
But we do have an opportunity every year to
and we have an opportunity to non-renew.
non-renew.
Yeah,
Or to maybe make very nicely worded suggestions.
absolutely. Yeah, the child nutrition program, it's all, the specification for the bid process is very highly regulated by the USDA, and one of the provisions related to suggestions is if there's any kind of a material change to the program, like, let's say Dummerston wanted to operate their own kitchen, like Putney, then we'd have to go out and bid the whole contract. Anytime you want to reconfigure that could potentially affect costs per meal, then they want the whole
They
thing
want- okay.
rebid, which is, it's a lot of work
Okay.
to do it, but not a reason not to explore.
And that used to be, the food service used to be negotiated on a district basis.
It
Right,
did before.
because the District 6 negotiated with Cafe Services specifically for this campus, and then all the other towns did it also,
Yeah.
so.
Yep, that was Act 156 that said similar to like collective bargaining and transportation, They wanted more of a collaborative and cohesive approach to the bid process, and that's why.
That's why it's at the SU level
Yeah.
now.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, maybe I'll go last in, first out. For FY '20, for the high school, back on page 70, we had budgeted $65,000 for the district support, and what was gonna be left, and now it's $200,000, so can I assume things didn't work out as we thought they might, or?
Yeah, well, this is before there was a commitment to Provision 2, and we were disappointed with the Agency of Ed's forecast on the transition. We knew there would be higher costs. We were not expecting 20%.
Okay.
Yeah, and what that relates
But
to.
is this revenue? No.
This is revenue.
This is
That's-
revenue.
Yeah,
But it's the revenue that comes from the taxpayer.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's not,
Gotcha.
yeah, it's revenue to the SU to pay
So this is
for
what
the
we
expenses.
have to, oh.
Yeah,
well, what the WSESD has to pay.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, not revenue
Okay.
in this case.
Not
Sorry
the
about
kind of
that.
revenue we like.
That-
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, and a big
Huh.
part of this gap, and again, Sean, if you recall our conversations on this, it was in the à la carte. The state, and again, it's a USDA specification, substantially reduced essentially the margin on the à la carte sales that used to be retained by the school district, and it would pay for a number of the meal costs. And it essentially artificially reduced that, the 65,000 from what it would be without à la carte sales. But then the new formula, this cost per meal program that the AOE required, it doesn't share the à la carte revenue with the district or with the school. It essentially, shares it more with the contracted service, with cafe services.
Ah.
They gain and we lose.
Okay.
And theoretically, that means their bid dropped the cost per meal to us, but the AOE didn't anticipate the extent to which we think we lost maybe $70,000 in à la carte revenue that would have been retained, and it's because they really hadn't finished the metric on how they were going to implement the à la carte cost per meal reimbursement until after. So that was disappointing, but we've also seen that other high schools that have gone this way, they're dealing with the same issue, and they're finding that the favorable impact of kids having a good meal is, in this case, this might be you can think of a number of programs that go along with 200,000, and folks are saying it's worth it.
Without a doubt. So could I expect that there's going to be some deficit from this current fiscal year?
In the food service, there probably will be. I don't think it's significant. We certainly couldn't sustain another year, like FY20 in terms of the gap.
Right.
But some of the districts did have fund balance in the food service funds from the old format. All of the district June 30, 2019 fund balances are going to come in,
Yeah.
and I think we'll be reasonably close.
Okay. And I guess the other comment that I have that maybe needs to get worked out at the district level or the PPE committee is if there's some way we can find ways to make that Putney program more sustainable, or try to even out some of the differences in the food program between Putney's food program and some other programs. So, and certainly don't want to ask anybody to renegotiate a food contract this year, but I think it's something, it's a pretty significant difference between the quality of the food and the cost that the district is supporting it. but that doesn't really affect this budget terribly much in the scheme of things, so.
Yeah. One thing that we did add in here, based on the principal input, was in Dummerston, the breakfast program. There was an interest in doing that, so that is also part of the cost increase.
That was my other question, yeah.
So what are you doing?
The management fee and Dummerston's.
The adding but it would also be food costs, yes, and the management fee for
Page 75.
the breakfast program.
So that's why Dummerston's going from 77 to 100,000.
Yes.
So what is that difference? 75? So what is the difference?
Adding a breakfast program?
Oh, so you've got
Yeah.
a, okay.
Dummerston was the only school that did not have a breakfast program. And the new principal was very, very interested in getting that going.
But it doesn't really appear to affect materially the amount of support that, in the end. Because,
Yeah, breakfast is a pretty well reimbursed program by the USDA.
Other questions?
So it's there is almost such a thing as a free breakfast.
What about lunch?
But there's no such thing as a free
No,
lunch.
no
Okay.
such thing.
I'm amazed at how low your fuel bill is at the SU office.
Yeah, it's a pretty good sized building, but
We're always cold.
I'm looking at it going, how are you guys heating that building for that amount of money?
now, good point though, and one other explanation for that is the lease says that
Oh, do
the landlord will pay the
a
first.
certain,
yeah, so
okay,
we
now
can-
I feel better. I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you, that's an old house.
Yeah.
And
What page you on?
I'm on page 11. So they have 3,400 for fuel, and I'm thinking, I don't know how you're doing that. You're hardy, thank you. How's the net metering? Where would I
Been
see?
very good.
Is that on the well, no, that would be elsewhere.
At the
That would
SD
be-
and in the Vernon.
Okay, so
budget,
that's
but
where we would see that.
Because we don't own buildings,
Yeah,
it's. We have a little bit of electricity in here, but.
Okay, but-
we don't control
You
the
don't, yeah,
relationship.
okay.
But that's, in general, going very well.
It's going well, okay, because now we should see it in this year's budget, a
Yes.
larger,
Yeah, because.
or a better,
We'll have the summer months.
okay,
yeah, to get the
okay.
credits, yeah.
Wasn't that like a $70,000 a year number or something like that?
Yeah, yep, 70,000 a year is the anticipated savings for 20 years.
Other questions? So if people want to keep looking for a few more minutes, let me ask one procedure question, which is, if we wrap this up tonight, what's the timeline looking like? Are we still on your timeline?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I have it.
So, this was scheduled as the final budget review, and if there's a motion to approve, then this would become the fiscal year '21 budget for the supervisory union.
Okay,
And then the assumptions around spending and then those allocation methodologies that the board approved would get turned into the two assessments, one to the SD, one to Vernon, and it creates a billing mechanism to the state and to the other tuition tabs.
okay,
And kind of just to follow up on that a little bit more, so the first draft budget for the Windham Southeast School District is scheduled for Wednesday, December 18. And I think we were shooting for one for Are we shooting one for Monday?
Monday?
Bernie?
Okay.
Vernon, yeah. I better check my original calendar. I don't want to overpromise, but,
Hey, you pulled this off today, so we're kind of gonna hold you.
yeah.
Have a good weekend, Frank.
Let's look at our,
Oh, so you guys are meeting
Calendar.
next Wednesday?
Mhm.
Do you know where? Might as well add you to the book.
Not the keys.
budget timeline.
Where?
Maybe Gil-
Vernon.
I think.
Guilford?
Guilford?
Well, I'm guessing. I think I did read it somewhere. That agenda has not come out yet?
Okay.
No, I just sent it to Barb this afternoon.
I think it's good. We will get that for you on
Okay.
Monday. How are you doing, Mary? Are you ready for a Monday drive?
We're gonna talk tomorrow,
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Friday. Yeah.
or tonight.
All right, any other questions? It is a thick document, so go through it. Although we have seen it a few times.
Yes, we met on the 18th, and that was our focus. November 18th was curriculum assessment, services, and the grants. And on the 25th, we met on the allocation methodology and the administrative supportive instruction. And we were shooting for the 2nd of December for special ed review. That's got snowed out, so we met December 9th for special education review. So this is our 4th review of the budget.
I might have one more question. And could you just comment a little bit, Frank, on the increase, that 14.5?
Yeah, so that, as you see, the largest component of that is the special education group on line 28. You see, if you look on the far right, there's a series of numbers there, and I'm on the first, the summary page, the first page.
Yep.
So,
Oh, yeah.
so that 14% is driven primarily by the largest segment of our budget here associated with the special education programming. And then the other components are substantially less. The administration supportive instruction is up at the top group. That's on that line 19,
Yep.
up 1.8%. And then the other two programs are essentially self-funded, but the grants up 5.9, and the food service mainly because of the Putney and the Dummerston structural changes. That's how we get from an administrative budget up 1.8% to a total budget up 14%. It's primarily the special ed.
And when it is coalesced all into a single budget and the annual meeting, I presume that number will be something different than what this represents.
It could in terms of the assessment.
Well, at the annual meeting, when the WSESU and I presume the Vernon, but this budget will not be, when does this budget get presented to the public per se?
This is it, right now. Yeah, the assumptions from this budget get integrated into the Vernon and the Windham SD, starting as soon as the board approves this
I
budget.
see, yeah, but, okay.
Yeah, but this is
But
the,
like when you have an annual meeting at the District 6 level,
yeah,
everything is coalesced into one annual report.
yeah.
And this will be too, but it's a little, it's different.
Yeah, it is in that the supervisory unions don't have a requirement like a school district to have a vote of the electorate. It's the appointed school board who is elected by the electorate,
Right.
and then those assumptions are integrated. But yes, we do integrate parts of the budget data into now it will be the Windham Southeast School District annual report.
Right.
These assumptions will be a subset of that report, just like they would be in Vernon, and they have been over the years. No change there.
But the Vernon will actually vote for the Vernon budget at town meeting day.
Yes.
Right.
And they will not be able to vote in the WSESD annual meeting. Is that right?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions?
I do have one, I'm just trying to figure out how to ask it. We'll work on that for a minute if somebody else has another question. Because there were some assumptions we spoke about Monday.
Mhm.
Are these in here as well?
Oh,
They-
yes,
they are,
they are.
yeah.
Okay, that's what I was
Okay.
trying to find a comparison.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
That explains why the percent's different than what I
Yeah.
remembered. Okay,
That's-
Yes,
great.
so this is completely
Yeah.
up to date,
Right,
accurate,
yeah,
based on real time,
that's it.
and where we are at. Any other questions? Or you all want to keep looking for a few more minutes? I don't want to cut anybody off. Anne, if you'd like to do a song and dance for BCTV.
There will be no singing, no dancing.
All right, so we've answered David's questions, I'm glad we did that.
I'm just looking for 2 million in here.
Yeah, I'm with you, I'm looking for the,
That's
oops,
not
there's a
gonna
comma in the
happen,
right,
so-
yeah. 3 would be better, but. And it's far too early to tell how this is going to impact our tax rate and the
Yeah.
SD tax rate. So
Yeah.
that's where it's a little nerve-wracking.
It is, yeah.
Frank, did you say that the arbitrator came back with the answer?
I have not seen a official, did we have an official report? I've been
They
in,
took the employee, I heard.
According to
VSBA.
Digger.
It was
yeah.
in Vermont Digger, yeah.
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 I saw that
But
too.
was it in its entirety or only provisions of?
I thought it was
No, you had to take the last best
entirety.
offer, you had to take it, that was the deal with the arbitrator, everybody had to submit their last best offer, and the arbitrator had to determine one or the other. There
Okay.
was no horse trading.
Mm,
So you could horse trade up until the last minute.
okay. Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I will be curious to look at the details.
So you do have another question coming?
No, I got that, that was my question.
Oh, that was your question? All right.
One quick question, Frank. On page 24 of 78,
Mm-hmm.
sort of midway down the page, is the professional educational services that went from 107 to 257.
Ooh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious about that. It was a high
Yes.
number.
I can start the conversation, or I can just turn it over to our special ed educators. It's the 321, and I'm assuming it's something to do with the tutoring
Yeah.
services.
What page?
Page 24. And it's, so it's within special ed at the high school level. And we've gone from 107 to 257. And as I recall, it's part of the priority placement.
Right, it's for tutoring of students who have lost their placements. some students have,
What does that mean, sorry?
that they've lost their placements, that they are no longer able to go to, whether it be the high school or to a private school. And so we have to provide tutoring for those students during the time that we're finding another placement.
Okay.
And that number has increased.
And at the same time, the placements, which I'm assuming are 2 lines down,
Tuition,
the
yeah.
tuitions, those have bumped up 400,000.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, and that's,
I think we talked about that
yeah.
whatever day we were all.
Right, my day.
And that goes back to the same data sheet you were referring to,
Mhm.
where there's some stability in numbers, but in the outside placement, it's
It's-
gone from 29 to 54. And that's what those numbers reflect.
All right.
Did we answer your question?
I-
No,
yes.
that was Tim's question.
That was, yeah,
Did
oh,
we
yeah.
answer your
Is that
question?
good, Tim?
That line encompasses other things in addition to tutoring, like the professional educational services. So we contract with several agencies who help us service students with disabilities. So like 9 East is a professional service we contract with for students who are hard of hearing. Vermont Association, you know, there are several professional organizations that we contract with per student IEP needs. So it's hard to get into, to be blunt, it's hard to get into the nitty gritty because it's, you know, it's protected information. We want to be sensitive to student needs and whatnot. But as Marisa pointed out, we, you know, really based on events that have transpired in the past month, you know, made a decision to, because we have an increase in students who are, you know, as Marisa put it, they've lost their school placement, and we have the duty to tutor them and provide them with a, you know, with an educational program. So hopefully.
I mean, that is an amazing increase, though, from FY19 to be at 18,000 to now be at 257.
One component of that is we have students who move into the area that have high needs based on their individualized components, and we can't, that provide professional, that require professional services.
Okay.
I just, is the intensive service program in this budget, or where does that come from?
Yes.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. That's page 26, or part of it is on 26. Yeah. Other questions? I'll keep asking. Anybody?
It's my understanding that tutoring is required by statute, right? Yeah, just,
Yeah.
it'd be good to put in the notes here, because it sounds kind of,
Oh, yep.
Yes. Yeah, we are always obligated to provide a student an education if they have an IEP, no matter what happens.
Anything else? And tell me all when you've reached the end and you're just.
If I can just say that, you know, the three of us continue and will always continue to work on fixing this, you know, making sure that we come to another solution. It's just that right now, we haven't been able to really figure that out with
You
all
have
the
kids
things
to
that are
service.
happening. Yeah.
I would say that, since I've been involved, the scope of your job has only gotten bigger. And so your dedication is pretty out there, and it's obvious that you are dedicated, so. Since I'm not on this board, I can say what I want as a public member. Good job.
I'm on this board, and I will second that motion.
And I think we'd all say ditto. All right, anything else?
Does anybody have a sense of, is this kind of happening around the state, or is this just our luck here?
It's
So
happening
it's-
nationally. I was home for, to visit my family, and I'm from Pittsburgh, and I shared an article with Shelley, and their special ed costs have gone up about the same amount. But around the state, it's also the
It's
same.
also,
Every special ed director we speak to, everybody is in the same boat.
They all have the same look that you guys do.
Yeah, because we are always looking for answers, and it's
Right.
like, how about you? And it's like, nope, we're sort of in the same place.
I feel, it feels especially hard in this geographic area, to be honest. And I think that, in this kind of, in our southern Vermont, I think that, that being said, our partners in the north, my perception is that everything in Burlington is wonderful, and they have all these resources, and it's because because it's the city. But they definitely struggle too. I think that we have, we talked about it, I mentioned it very briefly on Monday, but with implementation of Act 173, we have work to do as a system to, to make sure that we are, that we are meeting the needs of all the kids that we can in the least restrictive way. So, we're up for it, and we have excellent partners, in our administrative staff, and so we're mindful of that.
And I would say, it's all driven by statute anyway. It has to be done.
sure.
You cannot avoid the responsibility, just,
Sure.
nobody wants to, but you can't do it by statute anyway. So it's a requirement.
I feel slightly compelled to say, on a bright note, because this is intense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for the sense of, since we're talking, we have programs and resources that I feel very confident in saying are extremely effective to serve our students. And so we have exciting, innovative teachers and staff and partnerships with families that are very effective in educating kids in their home schools and reducing the need for some of the services that we see here reflected in the budget. And so I think that, to Maurice's point that she started with, it's really, we are working tirelessly to expand those opportunities, to expand and build on those opportunities so that we can find those systems that make our kids more successful and reach their full potential, and really broaden that in a way that is, in the best interest of kids. So there are great things happening, and we aim to keep those things happening.
If you were to look forward, do you see that that things are going to progress in this same direction in the future? Are you looking at higher percentages of students needing special ed services, or what do you see the trend there?
Anyone else want to talk about that?
I could start.
Sure.
I think what we're really seeing is that things have changed so dramatically for children and families so quickly that from my perspective, I feel like we're trying to catch up, and we haven't done that yet. We're trying to figure out what's really gonna work for these kids to make them successful. What is it? And we're all working on that, and that's what we do at Leadership every month. You know, we've really been focused on that. We're focused on trying to figure that out. There's also, there's a group of superintendents that are looking at building a collaborative so that some kids with really high need, instead of us each doing it individually, could we do it collaboratively? So there's a lot of things sort of in the works. I just feel like we're just in this moment where things have happened so fast that it's just, I find that it's just difficult to catch up. I don't know how.
I mean, we are seeing a greater need earlier in kids' educational experiences
Yeah.
than what we've seen in the past.
Do you think by catching them earlier, I mean, how do you think that affects them as they, do they, if you catch them earlier, does it help them to no longer need the services? Or would you see that they just continue to need the services? What's your sense of that?
I think that's kind of student dependent, right? There are some students that will need, you know, special education services for their whole career, and there are some that don't. And it's, I mean, it's sort of a kind of a, I didn't mean it to be such a weird answer, but I mean, it is kind of that simple.
Yeah.
When it comes to things, you know, social emotional development, like there are some instances for students that are very temporary, right? Where outside factors are influencing a child's behavior or ability to function in a, you know, socially and emotionally with their peers. And if we intervene strong enough and early enough and with the right interventions, a child will learn the skills, you know, more socially appropriate skills as opposed to, you know, not socially appropriate skills that might be problematic. We have a lot of great we have a lot of great systems in place, I feel, for that. And, you know, and we do the same thing for instruction, right? You know, we're really focused on early literacy, trying to, you know, to make sure that we don't have students who are casualties of lost instructional time or instruction that doesn't match their learning style. You know, I think that we're getting better all the time at helping those students meet their biggest potential. And I would agree with Marisa. Like I feel like we just have to sort of catch up, and then you know, that's your question, I think, is maybe part of the intention of the legislature, you know, doing Act 173 is so that we can you know, change our state system a little bit so that we can do so that we can hopefully reduce the number of students who need that highest level of need. But there will always be students who,
Yeah.
you know, who need, you know, very intensive levels of support in order to make progress.
Any other questions?
Want me to get the party started?
That's why you're here.
I move we approve the SU budget in the amount of $22,783,474.
Whew. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
All right, any final discussion? Everybody ready for the question? All right, all those in favor of passing the SU budget in the amount of $22,783,474, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Any abstentions? Okay, and the budget passes. All right, next up, VSBA dues.
Have we met yet?
Vernon has not met yet.
Okay. That's
Does
okay.
everyone mind if we table one more time?
No, because I could be home for dinner.
Okay. Don't-
Would it be the courtesy to the Vermont School Board Association to write a brief letter saying that we are in the process
I don't
of
mind at
doing
all.
such a thing?
Yeah, so I can email.
Because, I mean, the bill is
Yeah.
marked as overdue.
Overdue, okay.
As a business person, I always hated those bills.
Just saying, hey, Vernon's meeting schedule
Yeah.
did not.
I'm sure they'll, would appreciate it, but
Yeah.
I'm sure they anticipate that.
Right. No, but you're right, it is the polite thing to do, and I like to be polite, so. New business, so broadcast of the Superintendent Search Exploratory Committee meetings. So the question is, do we want to put some funds out there so that we can ask VCTV to cover however many future SSEC meetings we might have? I'm anticipating 2 to 3 before we get into the actual search. Is that agreeable to people?
I move we approve the expenditure of up to $600 for the filming of the Superintendent's Search Exploratory Committee meetings.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor of spending up to $600 to broadcast on BCTV the SSEC meetings? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. Any other business? Seeing none? Our favorite motion?
Madam Chairwoman, I move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.